Tom has a question for you. Tom?
Yeah.
I was just going to, on this last one, I was going to point out that I've done a lot of planting. There have been a lot of stream restoration planting along that piece right there, which I think is really helping. That some of the trees are actually starting to get above the grass height now, so it's going to look nice, I think, soon. And then there's also a neat thing right here at this little piece where there's been some curb improvements, but it's a low swale area there. I've been thinking for years now that we could put some good soil in there. It's publicly owned, I think, street right-of-way property, but I think we could actually have some nice shrubs or trees in there that would be kind of a nice neighborhood entryway for that piece. So.
And then the other area that was identified as a high priority in the eastern corridor from the public open house was at Harrison, down to the south couplet. And, there are opportunities underneath the objective number 1 to look at street tree installations and small landscape projects that could enhance that corridor as you move down. Some of that, if that stub seed property could redevelop and get a new project there, that would be a significant improvement in that corridor. But certainly some distributed street tree installations along that corridor could help as well.
And Bill, just to follow up on this, Ken Helm was representing the Idaho Transportation Department. Did you get any sense that there would be issues about putting trees along some of these highway rights-of-way? That's
something certainly we will need to work with ITD. They do have concerns. They want to make sure that they maintain some clear width, make sure they do not have conflicts with tree branches and truck traffic that may be traveling the corridors. And so those are items we will need to work through with ITD.
But he didn't get up and run out of the room or anything,
no.
So that's a good sign.
Did not do that.
Thanks. All right.
And then finally, as we looked at the south corridor, there really were 2 sites that were identified. The south entryway, and where we got most of the comments on the south from the South Fork Bridge crossing to Palouse River Drive intersection. Again, we have a number of bridge guardrails and other guardrails along the highway corridor there that could be enhanced and improved with potential public art installations. And then there are tree and landscape opportunities within the right-of-way along the corridor, really reinforcing all 4 corners of the Palouse River Drive intersection. That would really help dress up that first kind of place where you come to that first traffic signal and many vehicles stop or many vehicles appear like you're entering the community from the south. And then really anchoring the north end of the south corridor was that the south portion of the south couplet. There's a piece of property that's currently owned by Gritman, and this area is really a combination of some right-of-way as well as some private ownership of Gritman that is an isolated piece of property where Paradise Creek loops through, and so it's really bound by the highway on one side and by the creek on the other. And those were identified as areas where landscape improvements and enhancements could occur to help improve the visual appearances there. Potentially looking at some tree installations along the east side, and then some landscape improvements just within the right-of-way at the corners. So those were really the sites that were identified. I'm going to jump on back here. So that was objective number 3. And so we had within that those 8 sites, 2 within each corridor, that were identified and recommended for potential design consideration for the council. Objective number 4 was just to evaluate public art installation opportunities within the project corridors to add interest and character, and certainly to consider the improvement sites that we've identified and look at opportunities within each of those to add public art elements. Objective number 5 was to support the university's efforts to improve their gateway entrances and the historical rail corridors on the south side of the Pullman Road between Perimeter Drive and Line Street. So we talked about that. The main entry features are in design, anticipated for construction next year, but the university still does need to find funding to look at the improvements of the actual properties that would exist between those entry points. And then objective number 6 was to partner with the Idaho Transportation Department to pursue the potential inclusion of landscaping, public art, city welcome sign location, and other amenities within the Thorn Creek to Moscow US 95 project. We end our study really at the bridge because that's where whatever alignment is determined will be the location that will pick up on the existing alignment. But certainly there will be an opportunity as ITD defines an alignment, moves into design, that the city can interface and encourage them to look at public art opportunities or look at opportunities where the city could partner, whether it's the city provides some funding for some enhancements, landscaping, public art, to be integrated into that project. Certainly we want the ITD to be aware of the city's desires, and that's a great opportunity for us to look at trying to partner within their project with those aspects. So as we flip through those, so the next steps. So the first of which for the council this evening is really determine how the council wishes to to proceed with the project, and do you wish us to move into Phase 2 to look at design of the 8 sites that were identified? Phase 2, we anticipate, would include the development of concept designs for the 8 sites, the development of a second public open house meeting where we would share the concept designs and solicit public input on those. And then we would also develop a priority phasing plan and cost estimates for the council's consideration. We're hoping to have the final project report to the council in late December to early January of next year. So the council will then have that information available as they move into the budget process for the FY15 fiscal year. So that was the last item that I had, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that the council may have.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill. And I know we have the chair and the vice chair here tonight of this, and I want to say thank you both for your work on it. That clearly, you know, this harkens back to the start of our meeting tonight, talking about volunteers and awesome city staff as well. Thank you, Bill. Walter.
Thank you, ma'am. Just to clarify, Bill, the council, when presented with the $35,000 budget for this entire project, said, oh boy, and authorized $10,000 for this Phase 1. Your cost for Phase 1 is going to end up at approximately
$1,875.
97.
97, sorry. $1,897, sorry.
Reading your,
So that remaining money, presumably, upon council direction, moves over into Phase 2. So you've got, and you do not have authorization to spend that, and that's what you're looking for tonight.
Correct.
Not to jump the gun, but just to set the scene. So to this point, you and the committee have fulfilled council direction and are looking for further direction to move ahead.
I hope we have, yes.
There you go. Walter, did you have anything to add to Bill's presentation or any questions for him as follow-up?
No, ma'am. I can only compliment staff. They have worked really hard on this. I would not like to have, it was Ann, wasn't it, that sat down with all of that scratching that we did on the maps and tried to, not tried, but did pull it together into some type of coherent something. So can only compliment Bill and his staff for the work they've done on this, the time they put into it. The volunteers, of course, on the committee as well, but staff has really worked very hard on this to try to pull this together into something that can represent a picture that can make some sense.
And Melanie, that you've come all this way and stayed all this time, do you have anything to add to the presentation or any questions that came of it? He has indeed. Okay, so what do you think, council members? Tom?
I was looking at the council goal that we had and saw that it was, we were talking about the public right-of-way at the entrances, and started wondering, well, at the beginning, was there any opportunity for working with private landowners? And I was glad to see that the first objective went right to that, to talk about how we can talk to the other folks that are immediately adjacent to that. The public right of way. So I'm glad that we included that.
Okay.
so,
Sue?
are you ready?
Well, let me just comment to Tom's
Please.
comment. Bill said during his presentation that of the 4 entrances, when everybody went out and rode, walked, biked them, and tried to look at them with fresh eyes, the thing that jumped out at Ann when she pulled this together was weeds. And upon further reflection, it wasn't just public, it wasn't just private, it was both. So some of the public are going to take some design effort to decide, are those weeds or is that a natural area? Do we want to whack everything down from the city limits all the way into the center of town? And I'm not sure we do. We've got some areas that are wetlands. We have some areas that are nice natural areas, but others that are just plain weeds. So the definition of which of those are which and how we're going to approach them without putting a burden on Dwight's department of adding 10 new staff people to keep up with it is something that will have to be worked out during the design phase. There's also the element of the private properties that got a lot of dots. And Bill's already talked about doing that in conjunction with the chamber or with others, creating some type of of program to encourage people to take care of their properties. I was struck a couple of personal comments. Years ago, I lived on a 6-house cul-de-sac, and I remember one Saturday in the summer in Mississippi walking out in the middle of the street, having stopped my lawnmower and telling everybody, if y'all will just stop this, I will stop. And a fellow by the name of Todd reached over and cranked his lawnmower again, and I said, well, there goes the weekend. Good looks breed good looks. You think several times before you throw a candy wrapper down at Disney World, because somebody else pick it up before it stops rustling. The Moscow School District, the Lewiston School District, and possibly the Moscow, have a policy of graffiti comes off by morning, whether we have to paint the whole building or not. You do not leave it on. You get it off, and there's a lot less of it. I would really like to believe that the weed situation we've got can be addressed with a lot of early big effort, and then it will help get a momentum to take care of itself in a good way. And that, if one business is cleaned up, picked up, fixed up, the next one's going to probably think about it and say, well, I need to do something too, whether they want to or not. So I'm hopeful that this can have that kind of effect with this.
Thanks.
Okay. So what's next? Walter?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I would be happy. I've got to set the timing on this larger because it just shuts down really quick. I would be happy to make a motion to have the council direct the steering committee to proceed with Phase 2 of the City Entryway Beautification Project, allowing the committee and staff to engage with the design architect to use the budget that's been allocated for it to move the project forward.
Second.
Okay, and just for clarification, that's moving it from Phase 1 to Phase 2 and authorization for that new use.
Through Phase 2.
Okay, that's your understanding?
That's
Okay.
my understanding.
Walter's motion and Tom's second. Any other discussion? Okay, Tim, we'll start a roll call vote with you.
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries. Good job, Bill. Thank you. Congratulations. And thanks to all the city staff and the volunteers who worked on that.